I'd like to call this meeting of the village board to order. It is 7:38. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
All trustees are present except trustee Carpenter, who has been excused. Just wanted to remind the public, if you'd like to speak today on any of the topics on the agenda or on the agenda or off the agenda, there's a sign-up sheet.
There's one at the podium or there's just a photo.
We're still filling it out, and it's a new thing, so if you forgot, no problem, just raise your hand, but just want to continue to remind everyone that we do have a sign-up sheet for those that want to speak. Okay, so our first order of business today is a special order of business. It's 4A, consider signal box project grant for project, request for sole source contract approval for signal box film contracted vendor and an invoice payment requirements. Tyler?
Yeah, members of the Public Art Committee are here to talk about the project and the recruitment and selection of the contractor vendors. Would you be the one that will be starting off and just provide kind of a 2-3 minute summary of the project and what they ask us today?
I'm in 12 seconds.
Great.
Hi, Tim. Welcome. Just your name and your address, please.
I don't know if your, my hearing isn't what it used to be, but I don't know if your mic is on because you were rather quiet.
Quiet.
So anyway, good evening. Good to be here again. I'm Dick Eschner, co-chair of the Public Art Committee with Diane Buck. Also with us tonight is John Berg, committee member, and we're here to give you an update of where we are. I think we met with you 3-4 months ago, and we were amidst getting tasks defined and organized, and we've made good progress, but there's still more to go. That's why our discussion here tonight will be a work in progress, and we're certainly prepared to answer any questions you may have. But we'll try and do this fairly briefly so you have a good understanding of where we're headed. Our project name is Signaling History. If you've seen some of the things we've issued to you before, our project this year and into next year is putting graphic art by artists on the control boxes for the 11 boxes that are located at 11 intersections that control the stoplights here in Shorewood. This is not a new thing in terms of our efforts, but it's been done elsewhere. I think we've shown you an example maybe before of the kind of things we're doing. Diane will go into a lot more detail of where we are in terms of specific tasks and schedule. But our thought on this as we came up with the idea, and as I said at our last presentation, this kind of really came out after, as we discussed what's our next project, but with the help of Leanne Bushlick, the director of DPW, she sent me the idea also maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're trying to make it a reality. We think it's a great addition to the village, and as we've done in the past with our previous projects, our goals are to enhance art, appreciation of art, education, and enliven the quality of life here in Shorewood. We also have working with us on this project, the Shorewood Historical Society, because we want to use their wealth of history, of photographs and whatever to assist the selected artists when we get to that, and potentially coming up with ideas that could be used on these boxes. We've also had a number of meetings with Rebecca Ewald, who I see is not here tonight, and she's been most helpful and enthusiastic, and we've certainly appreciated the interest and support of this board as we've talked with you previously. We've got a lot of tasks that have been completed. Some are underway and some yet to complete it. So I won't go any further, and I'll let Diane take over. Don has been actively involved in this effort in terms of creating the graphics that we are using and that we have sent out previously, emailed, etc. to artist candidates. The Yeoman's effort, and Ellie Rabinowitz, and also the entire committee has been involved in discussions that we looked at options and how to do this in a very controlled and productive and hopefully successful way. So, Diane?
Hi, Diane Buck at 3559 North Summit Avenue. And Eve Seckenfield is with us today. She's our secretary. And Don has done yeoman work on this project. We now have a brochure, which I think you had the draft in your packet, and I will give it to you to pass around, and then I'd like it back, if I could. You've also received the our kind of what I would call our project task list, which are many yet. And you may have received an invitation from us for an event at my house on the 7th of November, where we are going to invite people who might be interested in underwriting these boxes, because each box will cost $2,000, and we're hoping to have 11 contributors, either individuals or the families or businesses, and they will be the people who will underwrite a box that they choose, and the artists will each receive $1,000 of those $2,000 as their commission, and they will, after they're selected, they will be have the winter to come up with a design that they would like to use on these boxes. And then we hope to have our fundraising done by the spring. And I think we have a good start. We have 2 already that have been sold. So that's very good. And we tonight would know that you have some questions, and the 2 questions that I imagine that you want to ask is if this is going to cost the village anything. And we have a budget of $22,000, and we hope to raise them all privately. So we do not anticipate it costing any of the taxpayers' money, as all of these public art projects have been. They've all been done by raising money in the community. There will be some things that the DPW will be doing, but it's pretty much their own maintenance in making sure that those boxes are in good condition before they're wrapped. The other question you might ask is, we're going to use a company that does these kinds of wraps, these 3M film wraps. And isn't there one in Shorewood that could do that? Well, unfortunately, there is not, but there is one in Whitefish Bay, Confluence on East Hampton. And they have looked at all of our things and worked closely with Don. And so we have that covered. Now, let's see, there might be some other questions, and we're right here ready to...
Mention the foundation.
Oh, yes, the foundation. Yes, you may want to know about the foundation. And that is that we did not know that we needed to go through the village board to apply for a grant. And we did apply for a grant. We went last year, I believe it was, to something called the Shark Tank. And they loved our project, and so then we applied this year, and we got $5,000 to start this project with. So we would like to take some of that money and bring it over to the village to pay for the small number of invoices that will come up, because we only have one business that we're working with, and then we'll have 11 artists that we will work with. Our donors will give their money, their $2,000, to the foundation with a memo on it for signaling history. And you've seen the task, and we're working on it but we can't answer every question you might have, but we'll try.
Okay, trustee Warren.
Well, thank you very much for this. I think this is a fantastic project. I think it will beautify the village, and I really look forward to looking at these signal boxes once they have artwork on them. My question is this, after reading the package, just so I understand the way that this is working from a funding perspective. As I understand it, the grant will come in from the foundation, and donations will come in to the foundation, currently held by the village, and the village will disperse in response to invoices received.
Yes, pretty much, except the money will go to the foundation first, and then money as needed will be transferred over here to take care of the invoices.
And I believe they do that for tax purposes, correct? So it's, yeah. Any other questions? Trustee Maher?
Yeah, maintenance was an issue. So it indicated there's a review in May. I'm just concerned these things deteriorate and that there's a plan that at some point.
Say again, I didn't quite hear that.
Maintenance, like maintenance of the artwork.
Oh, the
and
maintenance.
display, and that there be, I know there's an annual review of the
Right.
condition of them,
Right.
but at some point, the removal of, is there,
Okay.
who, and if the village controls the I mean, with the ghost train, there's an agreement with, who controls what and when it's determined. They've been up long enough.
Okay, there is a 5-year anticipated lifetime for one of these boxes. If you want to see what it looks like, go on Capitol Drive to the Sharp Brothers. There is a box there, and they had that wrapped about 3 years ago. It still looks great. Now, if there were some vandalism, we have a situation with Confluence. Don has already looked into it. We have some money set aside so that we could rewrap the box if it was damaged or vandalized.
Trustee Maher, are you asking not necessarily for a separate maintenance agreement, but something in the file that talks about who's responsible?
Right, and also the donor's expectations of who's going to maintain
So
this.
donor expectation, okay, let me ask you that. Most of the donors will receive the artwork, so you won't have any responsibility here. And they're going to have their name put on the box.
Okay.
And what their expectations are, they understand. They will understand when they come to our gathering that it's a 5-year-old life. And that's the most we can. We hope that the schools will pick this up and maybe do it the next time, because it's a good art project for young people. So that's kind of what our hope might be in the future. But for now, we will be telling our donors that it is a 5-year expectation.
That's good.
And Trustee Maher, did we have a conversation, or anyone on the board that remembers something about having them sign, like the donor expectation of if it's vandalized, it may not be replaced? I don't remember if it was for the pavers or what it was for, but I believe we did talk about that at one point. Okay. Trustee McKay?
We have, there is a donation policy that's attached to the amenity fund that we developed for parks donations, and it outlines all those kinds of things, and so you might want to use that language. I think, Tyler, would you know how to find that?
I think I know where it might be located.
I think that,
Okay,
thank you for that.
if you'd find that and send it over to Dick or I.
And I'm not saying it's a requirement to have anybody sign anything, but, it's.
We can take a look at it,
Exactly.
and we'll put it on our agenda for next month.
Thinks through all those kinds of things.
2 other details. The way we set this up, and a lot of it started because of the, I'll call it the geographic characteristics, where each box is located, is we will be wrapping 2 sides of each box. Some of them on one side have shrubbery or a building or something, so we as a committee have gone through this and selected what we thought would be the most visible sides from the adjacent streets, so that it has the strongest impact on people walking or driving through the community.
Yes, we're not wrapping all 4 sides.
each of them is indicated in the brochure.
Any other questions?
I actually have one. So I asked Rebecca beforehand, and so it's a sole source contract, and I'm pretty cautious about that, of doing sole source contracting. I understand there's no one in Shorewood. When Milwaukee County went out for their buses, did they do an RFP? And were there other vendors that they sent so it says that we're using the same one as Milwaukee County uses for the buses. And I'm just wondering, is there really not any other vendor in our region?
Not anyone that we wanted to use because we're a local place and the next, our next village is Whitefish Bay, so we looked around there and Dawn found Confluence, and Confluence did the piece that's on Capitol, so we thought it was good enough for us.
Well, I understand that might be, but the policy of the village is if there are, unless there's absolutely, it's proprietary, meaning there's no other vendors possible in the region, then we need to go out to RFP.
So what do you say is the region?
Milwaukee County, I would say.
Milwaukee County?
Just close enough that, it wouldn't be a burden for someone to do, an extra cost.
I can address that.
Can you address that, Don?
Yes, thank you. I was in contact with our current supplier, Confluence, and asked how unique this process is. He said it's very unique and it's very unusual for other companies performing these kinds of things.
That was it. So why I asked about Milwaukee County, if they did an RFP, we should be doing an RFP. If they felt there was another vendor in the region and it was over their policy limit, ours is 10,000. I really believe that I can't vote for it as a sole source contract unless I know that they're the only company in our area that can do this. If that's why we're doing a sole source contract. Sure. Trustee Rogers.
So does that apply to the Public Art Committee if they're funding?
Yes,
all
any
themselves?
village. And
And this is what, $22,000? So if they kept it under, what's the threshold?
10.
Okay, well, is,
Trustee Mendel.
President Chair, we might be able to piggyback on the contract Milwaukee County did. So like if they went through the procurement
Right.
process for essentially the same thing, we may be able to just take the results of their, their procurement process. I don't know, but that was probably a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless they have a current contract, you can't piggyback on. We could
Well, we
piggyback
could
on.
look.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
The other question I had is, are we replacing some of these boxes?
No, I asked that question last time. It's a different box.
Oh, it's a different box, okay.
And I got confused last time too. Is that correct, Tyler?
Yeah.
The answer was they're different boxes.
Okay, all right.
Tyler, did you was your hand up?
No, it was not.
Okay, so I don't know, I don't know that without that answer about the sole source, that there's nobody else in the region that I could vote for this tonight. I could make a motion to defer until about the next meeting.
Do you want us to appear again? If we find out, do our research and we send it to you via email, do you want us to appear again?
Sure, I mean, if you could just work with our village manager, our assistant village manager, or our purchasing director, which is our finance director, someone that can verify that there's no other vendors and can say that this needs to be a sole source contract for the village, then that can go into the file.
Okay.
Trustee McKay?
I guess, I just want to be clear about what the procedure is. So typically, we have to go out to RFP
If it's
for this.
written.
And so you're suggesting that they have to go out to RFP?
I'm suggesting, I don't know, if it's proprietary, the policy, I read it last time, but the policy says if it's proprietary, meaning nobody else in the region can produce this, it's just
I understand that, but I guess I want to be clear what the direction is and then what impact that's going to have on their project, because an RFP process takes a while, and then if we deviate from that, then I'm wondering why you are bringing this up. It's like we either follow it or we don't follow it.
Right.
So that's, I guess.
I'd like to follow it, that's the only reason
I
I
understand
asked.
that, but I just don't know, do we take a vote on that? Do we?
Well, I guess I could do, trustee, I could do a motion to defer, but I'll let everybody speak first. Trustee Moore?
Well, yeah, I guess what it comes down to for me is, couldn't we establish that it's one of a kind proprietary, as I read the exception? And then if we can't establish that, maybe we come back the next meeting and we discuss whether we want to make an exception to the policy itself. So I think there's two roads to take here. One, let's see if it's one of a kind of proprietary. If it is, then it's fine as a sole source. If it's not, then at the next meeting, we'll discuss whether we're comfortable regardless of the fact that it's not one of a kind of proprietary.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Trustee Bowers?
And unless there's a time urgency, I'm fine with, what's it called, suspending the policy, if there were one this evening over a $22,000 contract. We had just one applicant for the, I forget what it was, for the Elder Services Board. We just approved it last time. There was only one contract. I don't know how far that RFP extended in the village. I know that was 10,000, so maybe that was just under the threshold. But this is a pretty unique situation, although I haven't done the research to find out if Milwaukee County or what the other borders are concerned. But one of the things I would like to say is, yes, if it's a policy and not a state statute, we as a board can decide whether or not we want to allow this organization or anyone else to, or if we want to suspend said policy for tonight because of the work that the Public Art Committee has done. It's also, we're talking about art, we're also, part of their mission is they wanted to keep this as local as possible. And they found an artist in Whitefish Bay, right, Whitefish Cemetery.
It's a business.
Or business, well, okay, business that's willing to do the work. So there's that as well, but it sounds like you don't have a problem waiting for us to bring this back. I have no problem voting on it tonight and suspending the policy and the policy.
So I just want to make sure everyone, I will make a motion, so please don't call a question. I'm just being respectful and letting everyone speak. Trustee Mantei?
So if, are you gonna wait till you have the 22, all of them funded before going ahead, or
No.
are you gonna do them as you go?
We already have 2 people that are committed, and we haven't had our fundraiser. I am very confident that we will have the necessary 11 donors to do this project.
Well, I mean, let's say you only get 5, are you gonna wait until you get 11 before getting the artists involved and Confluence, or are you gonna go piece by piece? Or are you gonna do them all at
Well,
once?
to tell you the truth, I didn't anticipate that we would have this problem. So, I haven't
That's
thought.
confidence for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is my confidence.
Okay.
So,
That's
but
okay.
basically, I mean, we can put it back down because we cannot do this project really until the spring. But we wanted to get it done in time for the DNC. That's what we wanted. So that, you know, every village in this county is getting ready for that big thing. And that's what was our goal. But we will do what we're asked to do.
Trustee
So it's
Marker?
not 22,000 for the film, it's 1,000, the estimate is 1,000 per box for this
That's right.
vendor. The 1,000 goes to the artist, so it's 11,000 is an estimate. So the only exception would be 1,000 over, and they have done somewhere, in Milwaukee County is using the vendor.
And Michael, to tell you the truth, I'm glad you brought that up because Don did the research with Confluence and went out with them, and their total was 9-something, wasn't it?
Oh,
Well,
now we're.
Yeah, I think we,
Mike, right? Well,
yeah.
yeah, then we can vote
Wait,
tonight.
this isn't a contracted service, this is a purchase, correct? It's a
Yeah,
purchase.
purchase.
It's a purchase, so it goes under general goods. That's why I asked.
Good catch.
So if the items purchased under 1,000, you can do this. If items purchased under 1,000 to 10,000, you need price checking from at
Price
least.
checking from at least 3 vendors.
So if it's under 9,000 for the purchase of the film, or under 10,000, you would just need 3 vendor price checks to be documented for all items purchased that are between 1,000 and 9,999. However, multiple price checking is blah, blah, blah. So if it's over 10,000, then you're gonna need a written price quote from 3 vendors.
It seems like it's a lot. You don't have to do it.
Right, as long as it's a purchase of goods, not a purchase first. The policy's only 2 pages, I would suggest that all our committees get a copy of it in the future, because it is pretty new, it's about 2 years old. I also want to thank our village manager, because she recognized this was going to be a sole source, and that's why she's having them come before us, and I really appreciate that she's doing that. Trustee McKay?
I guess, yeah, if this is, I'm just confused about the turn of events that just occurred. So The estimate from the company is for a combination of materials and service.
Correct.
So anyway, I don't know that this is the time or the place to go through a policy and exchange that information verbally, so I guess I'd be more comfortable if we need to direct them to staff, to walk them through the policy and to see exactly what needs to be done.
So
And
that's
that's what we should do.
I would like to make a motion to defer the item to the next village board meeting to allow time for the Public Arts Committee to meet with our finance director and hammer out any type of documentation that would be needed to adhere to our purchasing policy. Do I have a second?
You know, fun, I mean, we had a number
Wait,
of
there's a
items.
motion on the table, one second. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion second, further discussion?
Yeah, we had a number of items under consideration. Within the considerations, the overall project was one thing. Approval of the grant, they applied for the foundation. The request for the sole source, which appears to be the component that wants to be, is proposed to be deferred. And then the invoice payment process, which was attached, which you've already worked out with, I assume the finance director.
Right, just as we did with the Ghost Train, and we haven't started the process because we haven't asked for payment of anything. We will work with the village manager and Mark Manuelson in terms of making sure we have the process set up properly with approvals and all that kind of thing to avoid any miscommunication or misunderstandings.
Are you suggesting to separate it out?
Yes.
Okay, so I could amend my motion if you're okay with a friendly amendment.
I'm good with that.
Everybody on board? Yes, okay. So I amend the motion, I make a motion to approve, just here. Okay, here we are. I move to approve the signal box project, receipt of the Shorewood Foundation grant for the signal box project in the amount of $5,000. Provide the treasurer funds to be held by the village and utilized for payment of invoices associated with the project. No village tax dollars shall be utilized for the project unless specifically approved by the village board. Approve payment of invoices after PAC approval, you know the rest of it, right? PAC date, signature, and submission of invoices in accordance with the purchasing policy to the village treasurer. And defer approval of the sole source contract for the film vendor in accordance with the purchasing policy until the next village board meeting. Period. Do we have a second?
That still works for me.
Okay. Any further discussion? Trustee Box?
So I guess I'm confused. They are asking for, or the vendor Confluence is asking for less than $10,000? And our purchasing policy is at 10,000 or above?
No, there's for things between 1,000 and 9,999, you need 3 price check quotes documented and put in the file.
Okay.
Anything further? All right, well, just want to say thank you. This is a really exciting project, and I know all of us on the board were very excited to hear it the first time, and I can't wait to get it started. I think that the businesses and the residents are really going to enjoy the results and being part of making history. Thank you so much, and look
Thank you.
forward to seeing you next meeting.
We haven't voted.
Oh, hello.
Well,
Thank you, and now, any further discussion? With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is special order of business 4B. Consider resolution 2019-14 in the matter of authorizing an exception to the limits for charges for the North Shore Fire Department. Wisconsin Act 484. Chief Whitaker, welcome.
So we have a couple of items. The first one, as the president said, is the levy limit exception. So state statute will provide a levy limit exception for joint fire departments. Organized like the North Shore Fire Department, so that exempts, if you wish to do so, from your levy limit.
I'm sorry, what it is. Oh, no,
Kim,
Just it picks up on the microphone. I can't hear anything, yeah.
They just asked me to come out and ask.
So the resolution here allows, if passed by all 7 municipalities, allows any of the municipalities, doesn't have to be all or be one, to exempt the increase in costs from the fire department year over year for our budget from your levy limit. So there's a specific line on the levy limit worksheet that the state distributes and has the villages and the cities fill out. So this would, the vote tonight requires a majority vote. All 7 municipalities, boards, or councils have to pass this. You are one of 3 taking it up tonight. Several others have already taken it up, and I will tell you it's passed in those municipalities. So this would allow one of the municipalities or all of them or however to use that exception.
So this is the first year, or did we do this last year?
I think it's the third year.
Trustee Maher?
I would make a motion to approve resolution 2019-14 in the matter authorizing an exception to the levy limit for charges for the North Shore Fire Department pursuant to 2005 Wisconsin Act 484.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Maher, a second by trustee Bachhorst. Any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Seeing none?
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Maher.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Menta. Aye. Trustee McKay.
Yes.
President Rosick.
Yes. Okay, we have another, another order of business. 4C, consider resolution 2019-15, approving the 2020 North Shore Fire Department fees of service schedule. Chief.
So this is, again, a resolution that's sent to each municipality. It has been recommended for adoption by the Fire Department Board of Directors. We annually update our fee schedule. Just over $2 million of our revenue sources is from fees. The fee schedule is in your packet. Each municipality or board has to adopt that schedule. 5 of 7 have to pass it. All 7 have to at least consider it. The fees are increasing for EMS services by 1.3% over last year, and we use a CPI blended rate. There's 2 different medical CPIs, there's medical care and medical care commodities. So that blended number for the last 12 months is 1.3%, so that's the number we've used to propose this. There are 2 significant changes outside of the 1.3% fee. One is a $250 new fee for a piece of equipment that is new that we're using. So it was not on the fee schedule from last year, so it is it's called Lucas CPR Rescue Pod. It's used for patients who are no pulse and not breathing. It has been demonstrated to have a significant increase in resuscitation numbers, so we are starting to use that equipment. And then we've updated some of our equipment that we use for innovation where paramedics use. So that's a $75 fee. It's a reusable piece of equipment, but it's fairly expensive, and there's some disposable parts to this piece of equipment for each patient. So those are the fees for that. The fire prevention permit inspection fees are staying the same, and the administrative fees are staying the same for 2019.
I want to thank you for outlining the change from one year to the next, and I encourage all committees or partners with the village to do so, so I really appreciate that. Any questions?
Motion.
Trustee Warren?
I move to approve resolution 2019-15, a resolution approving the 2020 North Shore Fire Department fees for service schedule.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Warren, a second by trustee Amenta. Further discussion, trustee Maher.
When you build these out, like does Medicare pay it all out, or are you having to write off things?
We write off a lot. So Medicare there's a couple of average bills we'll talk about, but like a $500 or $600 average bill for service, Medicare pays about $129 on that. So then we don't go after the balance from those paid for Medicare patients. For private insurance, we do, but yeah, Medicare there's laws that don't allow us.
Medicaid,
Medicaid pays about the same amount of money. I don't believe we balance bill Medicaid either. I believe we accept the payment of that program. There is, unfortunately, Medicaid, those numbers, they haven't increased their payments to the providers for several years. And we are continually trying to seek support to get that change, and every year we run into challenges, specifically families.
At one point, you indicated you had a process if someone's low income or cannot So the pursuit of them, and they can apply for an exception? Or?
Yeah, so every invoice that goes out for medical services goes with a statement that if you need assistance or have questions, call this number. Then there's a process that we have a contracted billing company that does a assessment. If the patient works with them, they have to submit their information. So they have to, here's what my income is, sort of a financial assistance program. We also look at what the hospital systems, normally they're transported to the hospital, so then the hospital system has some level of financial aid program too. We look at that and try to balance out some numbers.
Chief, you mentioned that the CPI blended rate was 1.3 and the increase in fees is 1.3, is that correct?
Right.
And so you use that directly. Is there a different CPI for like salaries for?
So I'll start the CPIs.
And do you know what that was this year?
So the salary, the average wage earners increase, which is the number that we actually use for our budget, I believe was 1.8%.
For CPI?
Yeah.
So below 2%. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second, and it would be a roll call vote.
Trustee Mendez. Aye. Trustee Maher.
Aye.
Trustee Bachers.
Yes.
Trustee McKay.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
President Runcie.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. We have one more, correct? One more resolution.
One more.
Okay, or two more?
Two more.
Oh boy, it's good night.
I've been around here tonight already. I've done this once already.
Consider Resolution 2019-16, a resolution confirming obligations to contribute to the North Shore Fire Department's budget to pay debt service on bonds issued by the Village of Whitefish Bay on behalf of the North Shore Fire Department. Did I miss something? And this is for
This is for the fire station. actually.
fire station in our village. Okay. Chief.
So the project, each project with this size requires a separate action by all the municipalities to pass a budget for that project because it involves borrowing and debt service. So that this is the formal action of getting the funding through bonding, which general obligation bonds being sold by the Village of Whitefish Bay on behalf of the project. So this is basically saying you, the Village Shore, will agree to repay Whitefish Bay your portion of those bonds, which they will hopefully sell next month. So we can then go and start the project. But to get, before they're willing to go to market, they need a resolution from all 7 municipalities, including themselves, who's taking it up tonight, to repay themselves and for you to pay them. So your portion of that is based on the formula that's in effect the year of the payment. That is based on 40% cost for service, 30% population, 30% equalized value. So that number does bounce around, but generally Shorewood is about 18%, high 17, 17.8, I think is the percentage off the top of my head.
So we're borrowing to pay ourselves?
So part of what you're doing is borrowing to pay yourself, because part of this goes to purchase the building from you.
I just wondered, and I apologize for this, but was there any talk about just reducing it so that we didn't have to pay interest on our amount?
I don't think there was.
Doesn't that make sense? Because we're just borrowing to pay ourselves.
You're borrowing to pay yourself. Your portion of the $500,000, so 17% of the $500,000 potentially is borrowing to pay yourself. Yes.
Very odd.
We could have just taken that out.
Right. Just borrow less. Okay.
I would make a motion to approve resolution 2019-16, resolution confirming obligation to contribute to the North Shore Fire Department's budget to pay debt service on bonds issued by the Village of Whitefish Bay on behalf of the North Shore Fire Department.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Maher, a second by trustee Bachhorst. Trustee Amenta.
So the total project cost is the 3.28201, and that's soft costs and everything?
That is, yes. Let me just scroll down to my,
Well, but the architect, you'd have to have the architect.
that's included in there.
That is?
Yeah,
That's everything?
that's
Okay.
everything. So
Okay.
in your next, just so we're upfront about your next action, you're going to approve the budget for the actual project. That's required, that number is 4.4, but that includes the interest costs then. So the interest
Oh,
on
okay, that's
on
what
the
I was
payment.
confused about.
Right, yeah.
I'm just having a really hard time because we're paying a lot of interest on money that we don't need to be paying interest on.
They gotta pay us, somebody's gotta, we're no longer 500,000.
Oh, I understand, I'm just saying, right? For that,
But we have to pay you $500,000 to
I
close
guess
this.
it's not that much, because 500,000, you deduct that.
It would
You
be
borrow federal.
17.8% of the 500,000, the interest of the 17.8% of the 500,000.
So it's not that much.
And so it probably would be, I don't have the number in front of me, but it's probably gonna be a pretty small number.
Okay.
Because the interest is like 2 point something percent.
Over 20 years.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's money, I'm not saying there's
Just,
not money there. I don't think that was discussed in any, actually, at any point, because we've done that in other municipalities too. It's been structured when we bought that building in Glendale, it was done this way, Brown here, it was done this way, and Dixon, it was done this way too.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. When we make a motion, is it unusual to not have the total amount that's being borrowed?
So I believe the,
So is it, okay, are
I think it's in
we,
there, isn't it?
No.
3 point,
it's not in the motion?
it's in the resolution, I'm sorry. 3.282018.
So could we say consider resolution, blah, 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 whether we're to pay debt service on X amount of bonds issued by Whitefish Bay, just so we know the amount?
And you're paying your portion of that 3.2.